What is happening, people, and welcome back, everybody, to Season 2 of our American football podcast in the End Zone UK. I'm your host, Dom, and we are bringing you the first episode of the 2022 NFL season. Across the mic from me, that's right, he has been brought back for another season. Like many players in the NFL, his contract has been extended. Let me welcome back the other half of the In the End Zone UK team. He's been waiting for it. Here he is. It's Big Dave. Big Dave, how is it going? Football is back.
Buzzing. Loving that my contract's been extended. Not that I did anything to deserve it, but I'm back.
The negotiations were tough. Your agent was strong, and he brought you back under the same terms as last time, which is absolutely free.
Free. I came back crawling on my hands and knees.
Free terms, 7 years.
Please bring me back. Bring me back for Season 2.
Love that. Welcome back, Dave, to Season 2. NFL has started, and we have waited so long for this moment, have we not? So long.
It has been, even with the off season's long, but when the pre-season, it just gets you, just tickles your fancy a little bit.
It does tickle your fancy.
And then they drop banger after banger after banger this weekend. It's been absolutely immense.
It has been
I'm
immense.
Knackered today because it's just been an excitement-fueled weekend, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Have you partied hard, Dave? Too hard?
I've not partied. I'm an old man, I don't party hard.
I was literally watching games in bed last night. That's how bad it was. I was not partying at all, but I was still buzzing with excitement. So this podcast, Dave, I'm calling it Ball is Back, Baby, because football is back in our lives now till February 2023.
That is the only thing that makes my life worth living.
It's like Christmas,
and I've got a good life, let's be fair. I've not got a bad life at all.
No, you've got a great life, and this is what makes it worth living. It's like Christmas. It's like a kid in a candy shop. And this new season is already started off exactly how we wanted it to. It's been phenomenal. Some great games to start week one, as good as you could expect. Red Zone was back. 7 hours of commercial-free football. Scott Hanson was all over it. Not only was he all over our screens, Dave, but he was also in our DMs as well, wasn't he?
That's what you love to see. You love to see Scott Hanson, a man whose face I cannot wait to see every weekend, which is not something I normally say to men, but his face and his voice are like music to my ears.
Absolutely. And it was an amazing Red Zone to start the week. We sat down with beers and pizza and we got into it. And the night before, he was DMing us, wasn't he? In the End Zone UK, DMs from the one and only Scott Hanson. He was looking at some of our stories, I think, because we tagged him. He hasn't given us a follow yet, but he needs to give us a follow. And once we've got that, we can officially say that In the End Zone UK has made it if Scott Hanson is conversing with us. So that made us happy. And then number two, there was an even bigger reason to be happy, Dave, was there not? Not only were we happy because the season was back, but Dave, the odds on this one, if Coral or Sky Bet had put an odd on this one, would have been absolutely incredible. An accumulator that you would win the double crown in fantasy week one and a Giants win in week one. You won the double crown. How does that make you feel, Dave?
It makes me feel pretty good. I absolutely trounced Zach in fantasy, beat him by 70 points or 80 points. Absolutely schooled him.
Ouch.
And then, the Giants upsetting the mighty Titans with King Henry, who got absolutely body bagged by one of our linebackers, Tay Crowder.
Love to see that.
Giants win on the road in Tennessee. No one gave us a shot.
No,
and then,
I gave you a shot.
You did, yeah. You predicted we'd win by a point, and we won by a point.
Thank you very much.
But it was a good weekend, and then for that to happen, and then, but 1 day later, 24 hours later, to be precise, what happened?
What actually happened was, courtesy of Monday Night Football and my boys, the Seattle Seahawks, Dom only went and won a double crown too. Fantasy win with a Seahawks win. A double crown for the In the End Zone UK team. Absolutely loving it. To be fair, I was buzzing off a fantasy win, but that doesn't even come close to the taste of victory the Seahawks gave me last night. The Seahawks beat the Broncos, the Denver Broncos, the Russell Wilson Denver Broncos, the defector, the traitor, the guy that left us, got his just desserts. And Seattle won by a point. Both of our teams won by a point, Dave.
Yeah, it's good to, I mean, I think everybody on the estate knows that the Giants won, because I was not shy in letting people know.
You did scream very loudly.
But all I'll say to you is, when you don't win many games, I was saying it to Cam, who was sat here, Cam, Packers fan, who got the brakes beat off him by the Vikings. I don't think he quite understood the passion that was coming from me when the Giants were winning. It doesn't happen very often, and when it happens, you need to savour that moment.
Absolutely. And the same thing for me. I mean, not the same situation. The Seahawks have won far more games recently than the Giants have, but to be in our position without a franchise quarterback, Russell Wilson leaving the building, and then at 4:00 in the morning, and that's what time it was when the final whistle blew, I was up out of my bed watching a field goal slide to the left and miss for the Seahawks to win. That is just ecstasy. That's all I can say. Absolute ecstasy. So a double crown for Dave, a double crown for me, fantasy win. I mean, I blew my fantasy out as well. Wasn't even close. Soz about that. And the double crown is in for the In the End Zone team. Gotta love it. Got to love it. So, I mean, we're already happy chappies, right? You can't get any happier than that, can you, Dave? How many times is that going to happen this year?
I don't know. I mean, we've got two good fantasy teams. I think the teams that be letting us down are probably the teams in real life, not the fantasy teams. But
I think
hey,
that's the case.
We've got the Panthers next. That could definitely be another win. I've got Aaron, who you beat in fantasy, so that could be another win for me. We'll see.
We'll see. Absolutely. So anyway, I'm sure the listeners don't really give two hoots about our fantasy wins, but they hopefully care about the teams that won, and we'll get back to real football. In this episode, we are bringing you listeners some news, an old faithful returning segment, some talk on the big games this week, and then me and Dave are going to give our way too early winners of each division in the NFL from what we've seen so far in week 1. So let's get to it. Ball is back, baby. Episode 1, season 2. Let's talk about some big injury news. We go from elation to sadness. And unfortunately, already in week 1, as you come to expect, players have not played for a while at this intensity, and they have been hurt. There's many that have been hurt, but we're going to just talk about a couple of the key positional injuries. And let's start with the first one, Dave, that affects you, and again, your fantasy team, but actually affects the team that he plays for far more greatly than anybody's fantasy. And that's TJ Watt for the Steelers. Talk us through it, Dave.
Yeah, well, they think he's torn his pec. I've not looked at any social media today, to be honest with you, so I don't know if there's been any update on it. But last night when I was up watching the Seahawks game as well, but the news came through that, because I nearly dropped him from fantasy, because apparently he needed surgery and he was going to be out for the season. However, I saw news last night saying that he might not need surgery and he could be back in as little as 8 weeks.
Mm.
But the man is an absolute game wrecker, the best defensive player in football at the minute. Up there with Aaron Donald, but I think TJ, the last probably 3 seasons, he's been absolutely dominant off the edge.
He's incredible, isn't he?
He was having an absolute stormer of a game as well. So he came off the pitch. I was devastated, to be honest with you. But he hopefully will be back in as little as 8 weeks, rather than a season-ending injury. Because you want to see. The Giants don't really have much in common with the Steelers, and we don't really play them. They're not. They're nothing really to do with us. I don't dislike them, but I don't really like them. But I like to see good players play football, and he definitely makes a difference when he's on the pitch, and he makes watching the games better.
He does.
So hopefully he comes back soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching that game, it seemed like every other play, you were calling his name at some point, or his name was being called. He had sacks, he had tackles for losses, he had an interception, he had passes battered down. The guy can do everything, and I think that is maybe what separates him from Aaron Donald as potentially being the best defender in the game at the moment. I think Donald is ultimately the best defensive player potentially of all time. But TJ Watt at the moment is playing at such a high level, and it was not nice to see him go down. And I did see him holding under his pads around his where his collarbone was, and I thought, yeah, that's probably a pec. And it turns out to be, a potentially torn pec, but hopefully maybe not a season ender. And fingers crossed that he gets back into the league and back into football sooner rather than later, because football is just better when you've got a caliber player like him coming out and padding up every day. On the flip side, we could be ruthless here, Dave, because I know that we tend to be that way. A second injury has had probably even more of an effect on this team than the TJ Watt injury. In fact, I'd go as far to say as it will have a far greater effect ultimately on the team's production and how they do this year. Am I sad about it? Probably not, apart from the fact that you want to see the teams play to the highest level. But Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys was injured in Sunday Night Football. Looks like he's having surgery or has had surgery on his thumb already, and he's going to miss multiple weeks into the sort of 6 to 8 week mark before he's going to get back playing football. And as much as you don't want to see it, it's Dak Prescott on it, Dave.
Oh, I absolutely love to see it. I've got no bones at all about saying it. It's not a career-ending injury. It's just a broken thumb, and it keeps him out of the. So we play them in 2 weeks' time. So we get to play their backup, Cooper Rush, I think it is. So benefits me massively. It could be, I've just seen there, it could be 4 to 6 weeks till he's back.
Right.
But I mean, let's be honest. They weren't doing anything anyway.
No, they weren't.
They'd scored 3 points. They were the only team in the league that didn't score a touchdown this weekend. And he left in the fourth quarter.
The only team that didn't score a touchdown. The only team that
didn't score a touchdown this weekend was the Dallas Cowboys.
And the Cowboys fans will tell you, we lost Dak Prescott. It's not our fault. But he didn't actually get injured till a considerable amount of time into the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah.
So he had 3 and a bit quarters to score a touchdown. And it never looked like they were even going to get close, to be honest. No, never going to get close. We're probably not going to talk about this game too much later on. So, just in relation to that and his injury, they played the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, the GOAT. It was relatively close, or tight, I suppose, because it was field goal before anybody actually did anything. It was 9-3. And then Tom Brady started to find the chinks in the armor of the Cowboys team and threw a nice little jump ball into Mike Evans, who I had in fantasy, in the end zone, who ironically caught a ball on one of the NFL's apparently top cornerbacks, Trayvon Diggs, and he dunked on him pretty easily. But that game was kind of always written up. Cowboys never looked like they were going to score. Some bright lights for the second year player, Micah Parsons, who won defensive rookie of the year. He still looks very good. Sacked Tom Brady twice, I believe, fast off the edge. That's about the only bright spot the Cowboys had, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just picked him apart in the end.
Yeah, their defense. I mean, they gave up one touchdown, and then the rest were all field goals, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
They did enough to limit Tom Brady and that team. That Bucs team's disgusting.
It is, but we'll see what happens with them. There was a few more injuries throughout the league, but we don't really need to talk about them. It looks like Jamal Adams is out for a little bit from the Seahawks, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And those were the 2 key injuries that happened over the course of last week. There was a fair few more, but like I said, they're the ones to talk about. And with that in mind, I think we move on and we talk positively about some things, maybe positively and negatively. and we bring it back. 6 months without it. I know that people have wanted it to come back. So Dave, I hope that you have warmed that hand up, done your stretches, because we're about to head back into the beloved segment of slap or sign.
I've been doing Pilates. I've been doing yoga. I've been doing strength training, all to make sure that I've got extra velocity on my slapping hand.
Absolutely. I can't say I've done the same, but I'm going to give it all I've got. Ruthless aggression. So let's start as we mean to go on, and let's start in the NFC. Dave, can you please give me your NFC slap?
My NFC slap is going to a player of whom I believe is the most overrated cornerback in the league today.
Okay.
Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey. Take us through it, Dave.
Jalen Ramsey has got one of the biggest mouths. All he does is give people shit constantly. All, if it's not quarterbacks, it's wide receivers that he's covering. And when he gets burnt, it is a thing to behold, a beautiful thing to behold. So the Bills play the Rams. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey is a cornerback for the Rams. And he gave up over 100 yards. And not only did he go over 100 yards, he gave up a perfect passer rating when the quarterback threw at him, which meant he did absolutely nothing to stop the ball going into the offensive player's hands that he was guarding.
Does that mean that if they'd have lined me up as corner in his position, I couldn't have done any worse than Jalen Ramsey?
No. They could have lined up the wide receiver with no cornerback guarding him, and the result would have been exactly the same.
Ridiculous.
I don't like him. He's got loads of attitude. He thinks he's the absolute bee's knees. Constantly gobbing off. He's not quick. He's tall. I suppose he's probably like 6'1", 6'2", maybe.
Mm.
And he got absolutely cooked alive by Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. I am very, very happy about it.
He did indeed. And it was a performance from Stephon Diggs for sure. He had close to 150 yards through the air, I think. It might have even been close to a little bit more, perhaps. But he did have an amazing game, and he put Ramsey in his pocket. Somebody who's been talking trash a long while, I think. And I mean, he is a good corner, but for sure does he deserve a slap this week. The reigning Super Bowl champs taken out by the Bills, and not just taken out, but some could say embarrassed at 31-10 in the season opener on Thursday Night Football.
Yep, so that's it. That's who's getting the good news.
Lovely stuff. Slap to Jalen Ramsey. Okay, let's go with the sign then. Let's see who you're signing from the NFC.
I am signing a man who, but 24 hours before he played football, not even 24, I want to say 8 hours before, I was in the office at work. There was one of the lads was talking about bets that he should have put on, that he's going to put on and stuff, talking about that he's going to put bets on Seahawks players to do stuff, and I was absolutely ridiculing this said individual, saying he's trash, he's no good. He's a poor man's Jacoby Brissett. He's a wish.com Tyrod Taylor. The man I'm signing from the NFC
no, you're not.
is Geno the Mino Smith.
Geno.
Geno has been a perennial backup. He's been a career backup, and we have spent the entire off season, me and you the Seahawks fan, according to your background here, the number one Seahawks fan.
Number one, baby.
I'm not going to assume your gender, but you could be the 12th man. We've been ragging him since census saying, you need to start Drew Lock. Oh, they need to start Drew Lock. Pete doesn't know what he's doing. Pete knows what he's doing. Yeah. Gino had a game. After that first drive, so prior to the game, come downstairs, turned it on, and I thought, Seahawks are going to get absolutely duppied here, and I cannot wait to abuse you in the morning. With words, nothing else. And after that first drive, I thought Patrick Mahomes was playing in Seahawks colours. Not even Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. He was slicing, dicing, dealing everywhere, completed his first 12 or 13 passes. Gino was doing the business. And I knew after that first Seahawks drive, that you were going to win the game. Because he absolutely menaced them. Was having his way with the corners and the linebackers of the Broncos. He was, let me get his stats up. So he was 23 of 28 for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. No interceptions.
No interceptions.
Passer rating of 119.5.
119.5. There was 2 quarterbacks in the league this week who had a better QBR than him or better passer rating than him. Do you know who they are?
The reason, I think maybe you know that, so was one of them Daniel Jones?
No, I don't.
No,
I was looking down Twitter. Daniel Jones was 5th. He had 115.9.
Okay. Right, it's got to be Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen.
Kirk Cousins had 118.9. So Mahomes and Herbert had better passer ratings than Geno Smith.
Wow.
So the guy had a good day, and hopefully he can continue to win games, because that was a huge win. Again, Russell Wilson coming back, salty as you like. The Seahawks, they can't get me an offensive line. Well, guess what? The offensive line last night looked really good. And do you know what it is, Russ? Because you keep running around like an idiot. Gino stood in the pocket and he had plenty of time, 2 to 3 seconds every time to throw the ball, and he did damage. Where Russ, surprise, surprise, was getting sacked because he was running around left and right behind the Broncos offensive line.
No, it was a sight. It was a sight. I have to give you, like, I appreciate, I'm almost going to thank you for signing him. I mean, he did everything that he needed to do to win that game for us. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but, you know, I don't think he set the world on fire by any means, but did he play far beyond any expectation that was, you know, on the page coming into the game? Absolutely. To throw that percentage of accuracy as well as that QBR rating, it's amazing. Do I think that we're, you know, playoff bound with Geno Smith? No. But at the same time, he beat the Broncos, and that was such an amazing win for us.
Twas.
So lovely stuff. So Big Geno gets the sign. Over to the AFC, Dave. Who are you slapping from the American Football Conference?
I am slapping a man. A big man.
How big?
Some call him, he's about 6'2", I think. Some call him the King.
The King?
I'm slapping Derrick Henry.
Wow. Man to slap.
It is, however, I'm slapping him with a smile on my face, because the reason I'm slapping him is also the reason we won the game. The Giants beat the Titans. But he was poor. He looked, I don't want to say a shadow of his former self. He looked like he was running in quicksand. He had no burst. I think he had 82 yards, and he averaged 3.9 yards a carry, which is awful. And I know our game plan was obviously to stop the run to win the game, which is what you've got to do, stop Derrick Henry, but nobody, especially in week 1, is stopping Derrick Henry. He just runs all over everybody. He just looked poor, and it's bad to see, because he's a good player, and I enjoy watching him play, because he's a physical player, hands people off.
Yeah, he's great.
I've never seen a meme of Derrick Henry being bodied like he was bodied. Like normally it's him handing off a corner and throwing him into the 5th row.
Yeah,
But when
got
he got
launched.
absolutely hit stick, and like I've never seen that before.
No,
I've never seen
takes
him.
a hell of a hit to take Derrick Henry literally up and off his feet.
Yeah, just absolutely flat packed him.
Yeah, I think that set the tone, didn't it? Like that came not early on, but it came like midway through the game when he was trying to impose his will. And that hit really, it almost like you could see his face afterwards. Like his eyes were like, whoa, I've literally just been launched like I normally launch people. And I think that said everything for the tenacity of the New York Football Giants. Like they kept Derrick Henry under wraps, which is what you need to do to beat them. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, slap for Derrick is it's a dangerous one, but maybe not so right now. He might not be able to catch you, Dave.
I think he could probably still catch me. I'd pull a hamstring getting out of the settee most of the day.
Nice. Okay, so Derrick Henry catches a slap, and it's a slight little gloat as well for Dave and the Giants win. Cool. Lastly, AFC, sign who you taking.
This pains me.
Does it?
It pains me because
okay.
I spend a lot of time putting this man down, saying he ain't the best player in the league. He's not the best quarterback in the league. But something changed this year.
I wonder what that was. Could it be something to do with fantasy, Dave?
It could. So I had the last pick in our fantasy league. I was the 8th pick.
Mm.
And lo and behold, when my pick comes along, there is one quarterback left. And his name is Patrick Mahomeboy Holmes. And you know what? Watching him absolutely obliterate everybody, drop 50 points for my fantasy team was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I've got a new lease of life and a bit of love for Patrick Mahomes, which I think will only grow. Grow as the weeks go on.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. I cannot.
And I'm signing Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He threw for 360 yards, 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. And when
Five tuddies.
Yeah, I've never really watched him. I've watched him play, obviously, games and stuff, but I never watched him with a keen eye because I've never been that invested in what he's doing. But it's surprising what somebody will do when they want, when I need him to win and put on a performance, and he does it. I was mildly happy, to say the least.
Yeah.
So I'm signing Paddy.
He's special. He's special, and I've said it on many a podcast, and I'll hopefully say it on many more. But he is special. You know, I think he must have been the only quarterback this week to throw 5 touchdowns. Must have been, and every single one of them was good. You know, he threw a nice little tiptoe into the end zone to Kelsey. He threw a little shovel to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He threw a dart to another receiver, a rollout little touch pass to a tight end. He spread that ball out. He spread it big time. And yeah, you know, when you've got him in your fantasy team, which I've had for the last few years, I've picked him for a reason because I like him, and I like the way that the Chiefs play football. But yeah, he had a day, an absolute game, and the Chiefs look as good as they've ever looked.
Yeah.
So
happy days.
That's nice. Good stuff. That's your slap and sign.
It is.
Romeo Dunn.
What about your slap from the NFC?
Okay, so my slap from the NFC is going to be the San Francisco 49ers new and shiny franchise quarterback that is Trey Lance. I'm slapping him because he was absolutely god-awful. I have not seen such a bad quarterback performance, I don't think, from two teams for a very long time. Especially when I say such a bad performance, you've obviously seen some backups come in and be absolutely stinky, and some rookies come in and not look great. But Trey Lance is now the future of the San Francisco 49ers, or he was until last week. Apparently, the Bears quarterback is also terrible and could have also got a slap, but Trey Lance is catching this one. they've got Jimmy G on the bench who has taken them to a Super Bowl. They're rolling with this man who cannot throw a ball. He had 164 yards on the through the air, which is generous for how he played. Like, it doesn't sound bad to listeners who maybe don't know too much about football or whatever, but 164 yards through the air off 28 attempts. He had an interception. He didn't really do much of anything. The Niners scored 10 points on a very, very poor Bears team who won 19-10. And it was just awful to watch. One of the early games, opening early games, just to sit there and watch garbage play after garbage play and him run around. The only exciting thing that he's got for him is that he can take off at a moment's notice. But he can't do it like Lamar can. He can't do it like Kyler Murray can. He can't do it like, any of the more experienced runners. He just looks like he's not got a lot to offer. He carried the ball 13 times for 54 yards. So you're talking obviously even less than 5 yards a carry as a quarterback, and you should be getting more than that if you're scrambling around. I'm slapping Trey Lance, Dave, and they should bring back Jimmy G sooner rather than later if they expect to be competitive this year at all. Saw things about Niners going to the Super Bowl and all this kind of shit. It's not happening. It is not happening if Trey Lance is their quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was an absolute monsoon of the weather was awful.
That's true.
But the stats don't do the game justice. It was an abomination to watch. At one point, I wanted to spoon my eyes out because it was that awful. Yeah. Just watching both of them two go at it, it just wasn't a good. It just wasn't a good game to watch, and the weather was terrible, so maybe that played a part in it. But he's not looked good at all. And when you've got Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench, I probably give the Niners fans 2 more weeks of seeing that piss poor performance, and they'll be screaming for Jimmy G.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Trey Lance catches the slap.
Sweet. What about your NFC sign?
Well, look at this. Who'd have thought it, Ian? And listeners, we don't script this stuff. This is just off the bat. Me and Dave don't talk before we do this podcast, but he
try
gave
not to talk at all.
Yeah, we avoid each other at all cost. But Dave's given my quarterback, Geno Smith, some kudos. And right now, I am going to sign Saquon Barkley from the New York Football Giants. Saquon returned to the field for the Giants with a new lease of life, in my opinion. Everybody's been waiting for it who is a Giants fan. Everybody who's a football fan has been waiting for Saquon to switch it back on to his rookie and his second year before he got injured and injured his knees and his ankles and everything else. And to be honest, I did think at one point, many points actually in the last couple of seasons, I think he's done. I think he's missed a step. I think he's lost some juice. I think he's scared. I think he's running fragile. But today, I mean, this week, he has put all of that to bed. He's playing a Titans team who've got a relatively robust defense, by no means the best in the league, but very, very solid. And he ran all over him. 18 carries for 164 yards on the ground. He had some catches as well, which took his total yards to nearly 200 yards for scrimmage. He had 2 big runs that popped, one for 30 plus yards, one for 60 or 70, was it, Dave?
69, I think.
69 yards. And he just looked every bit of Saquon Barkley, had an absolute zip of a run down the sideline, one of the fastest runs that's been recorded in the NFL in the last couple of seasons. So he's still got the juice, man. He's still got the juice, and he's got the power. He was putting his head down. He was trying to run through people, run round them, juke, jink, spin, you name it. And that's the difference. That's why you won that game. As much as you held Derrick Henry to, minimal yards, you also needed to move that ball, and Saquon was the man to move it. Danny Dimes had an okay game, don't get me wrong, but Saquon was the shining star for the Giants. I'm signing him. I'd love him in my team. He's a game changer. If he can keep this momentum, stay healthy, that's the difference between losing and winning some close games in the NFC East this year, and he can absolutely take you there. Saquon is back, baby.
Yeah, he needs to. He had a good game, and I mean, I don't. There's fewer things in football that are nicer to watch than a running back break off a big run.
Yeah.
And make people miss, run away from people, and I think I don't know what he averaged, but it seemed like every time he was running with the ball, he was getting them 6-7 yards, which made everything easier for Daniel Jones on second down when he's only got to throw the ball 4 yards, or he's only got 3 yards to gain to move the chains. And as soon as your running back is making them big plays, the defense has to adjust for that, which then opens all the big plays up downfield. And it was just nice to see an aggressive game of football from the Giants, which is the opposite of what I've seen for the last 5 years. But Saquon absolutely did bits. He needs to be the bell cow for this team. He's the best player on the team. And he's starting to play like it again, which is good.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Sweet. On to the AFC. Who are you going to sign from the AFC?
So my sign takes us all the way back to the first game of the NFL Week 1 schedule. It feels like a while ago now because we've had a lot of football play, and I don't want to miss out on what that actually was. Like, some people will have forgotten, and there's been some big performances from Mahomes and other quarterbacks, Geno Smith, doing bits. But there is no comparison apart from Mahomes. There is no comparison to this player. I'm signing Josh Allen from the Bills, quarterback. He took the game to the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Rams, the LA Rams. Their defense is savage. And yes, Jalen Ramsey's been slapped because he's not necessarily all that, but he's a great player in general. Aaron Donald is a phenomenal player, one of the best to ever lace his cleats up. Bobby Wagner is the best linebacker I've watched ever. And they've got a solid team around it. And Josh Allen meticulously picked them apart. Opening drive, it looked like they were going to win 60-0. It was unbelievable. He cut them up. He's amazing. He is a talent. He can run the ball, which he did for a touchdown. He can throw the ball, which he absolutely did for many touchdowns. 297 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 56 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Josh Allen, he accounted for every touchdown that they scored in that game, whether it was through his hands or through his legs. And what more do you want from a quarterback, Dave? What more do you want from a quarterback? At 6'4", 6'5", fast, powerful arm leader of your offense that can just get shit done.
Yeah, he's an absolute specimen. And he's like Captain America, built like him, moves like him. He's got a bit of attitude when he's running at plays. He tries to run at them, but I don't feel like when Daniel Jones runs at people, I'm a little bit like, don't do that. You look like Bambi.
He looks like a donkey on skate.
When Josh Allen runs at people, he looks like Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
he just blasts through people, and he's just. There's something. You're right. When I saw that opening drive, he literally just he without any form of problem drove down the field on the defending Super Bowl champions, whose defense, like you said, is unbelievable. He dunked over Bobby Wagner for a touchdown.
Literally, Michael Jordan dunked over him, didn't he?
Put his arm over him and just pressed the ball into the end zone. He's definitely got that it factor, I think, and Buffalo have got their quarterback for the next probably 15 years. Yeah, the man's an absolute stud.
And his arms are cannon as well, isn't it? It's not like
unbelievable. He throws 60 yards on a rope, He's just unbelievable. And he's obviously got good wide receivers there, but they're nothing without his ability to just launch the ball down the field. Like, they can just sprint and go, and he's just going to put it on them.
Yeah. So that game was fantastic. It was an amazing opening game. The Bills-Rams was my Super Bowl pick. Thought that could be the case. I mean, maybe not now. We'll see how the Rams go. Let's not forget they are a phenomenal team themselves, and I think they just came up against a high-octane Bills team that will be very hard to stop in the AFC.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And your slap.
Okay. Does this pain me to do this? I'm going to say no. I'm going to slap the ex-franchise Seattle Seahawk quarterback that is Russell Wilson. Rusty
Let's ride.
Wilson.
Let's ride. Let's ride.
Gets a slap. Scum. He's getting a slap, and it's because it's coming with some satisfaction, I guess, from me. Did he play horrendously? Almost. I don't think he did. I mean, like, ultimately he threw for 340 yards and a touchdown, but that was on 42 attempts, of which he only completed 29. His passer rating compared to just Geno Smith, I mean, he had a 101.3 passer rating. You're not really going to argue against that. It's okay. But it was more the fact that the narrative of this, Russell Wilson, the football powers that be, put the first game, the opening game of the season, to Russell Wilson coming back to Seattle, coming back to Lumen Field where he's played all of his professional football. I think that was a bit ruthless, but it obviously gets people watching. I thought we were going to get pelted by the Denver Broncos, who are an amazing team. And Russell Wilson could just not get it done, and he's catching a slap because he just did things wrong, you know. And it was amazing to see from a Seattle Seahawks perspective. You know, he didn't throw any picks, but he took a lot of sacks. I think he was sacked. I think he was sacked twice, maybe tackled whilst he was on the move as well. But he was constantly under duress, and it was at his own. I think he was under his own power, if you know what I mean. I think you said it to me earlier, Dave, that he makes a rod for his own back sometimes, doesn't he, Ross?
Well, all the time. I think when you watch the plays, I've never really sat and watched it, which is strange because I've seen obviously quite a few Seahawks games, but quarterbacks now, what they tend to do once the offensive line have been trying to do the job for 2-3 seconds now, the gaps start to appear, and quarterbacks will either step up into the pocket and just run a couple of yards, either get the first down or take a slide just to continue moving it. Russ doesn't do that. Even when that hole's there, he just bounces to the left or bounces to the right. And I think it puts your offensive line under so much pressure because they can't see that. They're focusing on one person, and then a linebacker or corner will take Russ out, and Russ is getting pissed off about it. When he's not, I know he's not a pocket passer, and he's known as that magician who escapes stuff, but he's not getting any younger, and he ain't getting any quicker.
No. No, you're right. You are right. And watching it last night for the first time ever as a Seahawks fan, obviously I've never had to do that before, but it looked like Russell Wilson in Seattle when he was at the Broncos. There was no improvement. I'd say he's gone to a team with a better offensive line, better running backs, you know, as good receivers and a much better defense apparently. And he just looked like the same quarterback, but in a new scenario, and actually worse because he didn't get the job done. And so, yeah, I mean, this off season has been a little bit of an eye opener for me. I was obviously wearing Russell Winston. He's not as bad as famous Jameis Winston, but I was wearing Russell Wilson tinted glasses as a Seahawks fan. I'm definitely not taking it away from it. The man won us a Super Bowl. I'll forever be in his debt. And I do think genuinely he is a phenomenal quarterback, but there are some key elements to his game that seem to have carried through to the Broncos week one, and we'll see what happens. I still think he could be amazing for them and take him to the playoffs, but it was just a great thing to witness. And at the end of the game, I don't know what he was messing around with. Coaches, Russell Wilson, as a franchise quarterback, if that's Tom Brady, he ain't listening to his coach just to whether to take the time out. He's taking that time out. You know, there was a minute left, and they cycled it down to 40 seconds, and then they cycled it down even further. Peyton Manning was on the Monday Night Football, saying, right, Broncos, this is where you take a timeout. Did they take one? No. Did they have three? Yes. They finished the game when we took a kneel down with 2 timeouts, but yet they had to take a 64-yard field goal to miss with 2 timeouts still remaining. That just doesn't make any sense. None at all. You take the timeout and then you try and run the ball, get 2 yards, get 3. It's just less get just less pressure on your kicker. So
Yeah,
for me,
it was
Russell
fourth
Wilson
down,
missed.
wasn't it? So they were on 4th and 5. So he would have had to throw the ball.
I suppose, yeah, true. But still, I'd have still took a shot.
Well, that you take the time out of a minute remaining, and then you have a look at your options.
Mm.
You don't let it run all the way down, and then think 64 yards is some kind of chip shot field goal.
Yeah.
I was saying last season that was the record before Tucker broke it. 64 yards was the NFL record. So it's not just there's a reason that was the record. It's really, really far away.
Mm.
We've seen how many kicks were missed yesterday. It was unbelievable on the weekend. An unbelievable amount.
Yeah. So so I'm slapping Russ, and that it comes with a slight bit of satisfaction in the fact that he left us. We've just beat him, and from a Seahawks perspective, I'm content now. Like, I know we're not going to be great. I know we're not going to be playoff bound. We're just not quite there yet. But that win probably means more than any other win this year.
Yeah, feel that. I'm going to add not an additional slap, but I'm just going to drop something in, which I didn't know until just now.
Go on.
So the Eagles beat the Lions, 38-35. A high scoring game. How many touchdowns do you reckon Jalen Hurts threw?
0.
None. Not one. How can you beat a team by 38 points and not throw one touchdown?
Because he's shite. That's why. He's terrible, and he gets so much love. He's terrible. Eagles fans, if you're out there, I'm calling you out now. Get on Instagram. Please tell us why Jalen Hurts is good. We both want to know. Like, I can't see it, and I'm trying to be non-biased. Eagles aren't in my division. I just think he is woeful. He runs around a little bit Kyler Murray-ish, but like Dave, as you just said there, however many points, and he still can't throw a touchdown. It was the same last year. We were saying the same thing last year. He just runs about, runs into the end zone, and you can get the job done there. Their defense is pretty good. I do not believe that he is anywhere near their franchise quarterback. Not even close. I think he's a backup at best. He's no Geno Smith.
Well, he's a running back, isn't he? Look at this. His passing stat, 18 of 32 passing. Barely over 50%. Running the ball, carries, 17 carries.
Mental. That's running back numbers.
For 90 yards. He's a running back.
Yeah. Yeah. Madness.
What a melt.
What a melt. I mean, that's the end of slap or sign, and we are now going in to talk about a few games. So, that's one that we can certainly, or we've just unpacked. The Eagles, did beat the Lions. It turned out to actually be a far closer game in the end, because the Lions scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, and the Eagles won 38-35. Yeah, but as it came down to it, Jalen Hurts did not look fantastic. The Lions also didn't look great. They looked like the Lions of old, and then they started to come back, and it just wasn't good enough, unfortunately. And they got beat 38-35. Dave, do you want to just talk us through the Giants win? The Giants win really, really quickly.
I mean, we've covered a lot of it. I think I'll talk. So it was obviously the first game for Brian Daboll, who's the new head coach, but it's an important year for Saquon Barkley, who's in a contract year, for Daniel Jones, who's in a contract year, and I think it's really up to those two to kind of show that they are, if they are franchise quarterback, franchise running back, and if they're not, unfortunately, it's going to be a bad year for them. But Daniel Jones, like I say, he had a good game. He did throw a bad pick, but he was apart from the pick that he threw, where he just stared down the cornerback and stared down the receiver, so that the corner easily picked it. He missed 4 passes all game. I think he was 17 of 21 for nearly 200 yards. Like I say, 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion as well. So he had a good game. And that's all I need from him all season. I just need him to be steady Eddie, do what Geno does, take care of the football. Don't be the reason the team loses games by giving them extra possessions.
Yeah.
Our defense looked pretty nice. We just, consider we didn't have either Kayvon Thibodeau, who was the rookie we drafted, or Azeez Ojulari, who led us in sacks last year. Both of them were injured and out the game. So everything looked like it. We looked like we were starting to turn the corner, and it was a big win.
Even more exciting to get them back and even improve further, right?
Yeah. Because we didn't really get to Tannehill, but we played. What I like is we kept the same game plan. We didn't try to start playing soft on the back end. Tannehill was making some throws, but in a game like that, you need to make the quarterback. You need to stop the superstar, and if they're going to beat you, you need to let Tannehill beat you, rather than let Derrick Henry just run the show and chew the clock out on you.
For sure. Nice.
Yeah, so it was nice to watch.
That's a big win for the Giants. Huge win.
Huge. We're basically, it sets us up now. So we're at Carolina next week, which is a winnable game, and then on to the Cowboys
with no Dak.
Yeah, so basically the next 3 games are more than winnable games.
Let's hope so then.
And that's the
fingers crossed for the Giants.
Yeah, for people who don't understand, this is the first time the Giants have had a winning record. It's the first time the Giants have had a winning record since 2016.
That's 6 years ago. That's nuts.
Incredible.
Good stuff. Okay. Let's do some sort of honourable mentions in terms of team games. We had a divisional NFC South. The Saints beat the Falcons 27-26. We had the Patriots getting busted by the Dolphins. Relatively quiet game through all accounts, really. The Ravens, of course, beat the Jets 24-9. The Commanders had a tussle with the Jaguars and won 28-22. And then one of the good games, the narrative around the storyline was Baker Mayfield leaving the Browns, going to the Panthers. It was a redemption game, and it looked like that Baker Mayfield might have done enough. They were winning 24-23 in the fourth quarter, but then the Browns managed to get into the red zone and kick a field goal to win in the last part of the game. Baker does not get his redemption. Don't think he deserved it necessarily. Didn't play a fantastic game through a horrible pick and only 1 touchdown. And the Browns looked average. They need a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett.
For sure.
Interestingly, the other game in the AFC that was very, very close, in fact, so close that it couldn't be separated, was an unexpected one, and that is the Indianapolis Colts took on the Texans. And Dave, what the hell happened there? It finished 20-all in overtime, a tie to open the season.
Yeah, nobody, I'm not having anybody, there's no way people would have predicted that.
No.
The Colts we've been led to believe that the Colts are this AFC potential playoff, do you know what I mean? Good playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's been talking about it since the days of Andrew Luck. They're a good team, you know what I mean?
Well coached and all this, yeah.
Yeah, incorrect. Matty Ice is Matt Ryan. I think Tom Brady took his soul in that Super Bowl, and he's just not had it since, has he?
No, legit.
Since 2016, I think it was, wasn't it? Their Super Bowl 2015.
That's it. Yeah, no, he drank from that poison chalice that was the Super Bowl defeat to Tom Brady.
Never been the same.
Never.
And he looks a shadow. It looks like he's got no arm. Can't sense pressure in the pocket. He's the man dying a slow death, unfortunately.
Indeed, and I suppose there's some credit to give to the Texans from that perspective to say that they stayed, hand in hand with the Colts. They far outplayed what you thought that they could play in their potential. So the Texans have got maybe a little bit of life there. They might not be a team that roll over quite as easily, but like you say, I guess some of the narrative on that one is that, poor quarterback performance. We saw a few. Matt Ryan, Fields and Lance, who I've already spoken about. Joe Flacco, obviously for the Jets, was woeful. Marcus Mariota was not fantastic for the Falcons. And dare I say, the MVP of the league last year.
Not even mention him, have we?
No, we better talk about it. But the Packers, Green Bay, one of the favourites to take the NFC North. The favourites to take the NFC North and one of the favourites to take the NFC in general and make it to the Super Bowl. They got destroyed by the Vikings, 23-7. Single score for the Packers, and the Vikings kind of had their way, didn't they?
Yeah, it seems to happen every year. There seems to be this one game where the Packers get just dumped on by the opposite team, and it was the Saints last year. They obliterated them in the first week. The Vikings, obviously this year, the Vikings. I mean, they're all stout teams that beat them. The Bucks beat them the year before and absolutely just destroyed them. Got after Rodgers, and I think that's just what it is. But Rodgers, he just what is it? Is it Christian Watson? Is that
Christian Watson?
Yeah. So he had a big drop, which would have been a 75-yard touchdown.
Terrible drop.
He did not get another target until the fourth quarter. And
Rodgers carries a grudge. We know one thing is that Rodgers carries a grudge. He doesn't talk to his family, he doesn't talk to his brother, and now he probably won't talk to Christian Watson for missing that one, because I could have caught that touchdown legit. I probably wouldn't have made it. Yeah.
If it goes through your hands, if it goes through your hands, it's catchable. And I understand he's a rookie. They're on the road. It's obviously his first huge game, huge divisional game. That game could easily. I mean, I've still got the Packers winning the NFC North.
Right.
They lost that game last year and then went on to just absolutely trounce everybody else in the regular season. So I think once he starts to get a rapport with these wide receivers, then it will slowly click, I think.
Yeah. No, I think so too. But what I took from that game was that all I could hear on the red zone was, which is the Viking horn, every time they get a first down, and it was literally just like, it was just like playing a full-on like Greensleeves. And Justin Jefferson had 184 yards off 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns in that game, Dave. So he is starting this season as he has started his last season and the season before, where he's looked like one of the top receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, there's no arguing. He's an absolute elite wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. So the Packers eat some humble pie yet again to open the season, and the Vikings, if they can keep this up, look potential dangers. Couple more games. We spoke about the Chiefs game. They won 44-21 against the Cardinals. Cardinals do not look all that, although they've got a lot of injuries. There was a lot of garbage points in there for the Cardinals. In fact, they scored 14 points in the fourth when the Chiefs had basically taken the foot off the gas. So it should have been 44-7 if you forget the final last few minutes in the fourth quarter, which is even worse. Travis Kelce, we've not spoken about him, but he had a day, touchdown and 121 yards. He's just still got it. And of course, you know, Mahomes, he's just an absolute wizard. And then the other game in the AFC West, Raiders took on the Chargers. Big game on paper that was. I don't think the Raiders looked particularly fantastic, but the Chargers won 24-19. Justin Herbert kind of looked like he could not do a single thing wrong.
Yeah, he has them games in his streak. Again, I'm not a huge fan of him. I think people are crowning him top 5 quarterback before I've actually seen anything from him. He's not won a playoff game. He's not even been to a playoff game yet. Mm-hmm. And Derek Carr kindly helped them by throwing 3 interceptions. So
yeah, that's nasty, isn't it? But I mean, one thing is for sure, Davante Adams is going to get a lot of work this year. 17 targets, 10 receptions, 141 yards. I think these games were playing at the same time? Yes, they were. So the Packers and the Raiders were playing at the same time, and it was just cutting from the Packers to the Raiders, and you were seeing like what Davante could be at the Packers and what he once was, and then you saw the Packers receivers not being able to make a play, and it was just like he is the X factor. Put him in that team, the Packers dump on the Vikings, I think, and that's what historically has happened so far. The Chargers win that. That's a big one to win in the AFC West for sure. That takes them, up above the Raiders and gives them every opportunity to take on the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, which is happening in just a couple of days' time. That is a huge game to watch out for. Last game that we'll talk about, and then we'll move on to our final segment, and that is the game that finished in a absolute heartbreaker for the Bengals. And maybe a heart stopper for the Steelers fans. This game went to overtime and multiple field goals were missed in overtime. Both the Bengals and the Steelers had the opportunity to win the game. crossbars, posts were rattled by the kickers, and the Bengals lost 20-23. The Bengals that made the playoffs, made the Super Bowl last year. The Steelers, who I think most people had counted out, beat the reigning AFC champions 23-20. I was going to say I don't know how. I do know how. Joe Burrow had a stinker. As much as he threw for 338 yards and 2 touchdowns, he also threw 4 interceptions, I think, and lost a fumble. Yeah. You can't win games like that, and I'm so surprised that it came down to 3 points with that amount of turnovers.
Well, that just shows the probably the difference between the two teams. One it takes 5 turnovers for one team to win, barely. Yeah. And like I say, if Joe Burrow doesn't give them 5 extra possessions and fortunate field possession, they'd have been destroyed, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So, not a good game for Burrow. But that teams like that, I think they were 10-7 in the regular season last year. Not a great record. Obviously, they went to the Super Bowl, so they did what they needed to do. But not a great regular season, and they're certainly off to a bad start this time.
Yeah, it is a bad start, especially when the expectations are maybe a little bit higher. A couple of bright spots. Jamar Chase had 129 yards with 10 receptions and a touchdown. As we said, TJ Watt on the Steelers. It seemed like everybody on the Steelers had a go.
Cam Hayward had a game. That man's an absolute tank up the middle.
Humongous
tank. He got the interception. He had sacks. He had interceptions.
Is he stronger than you, Dave?
I mean, I won't go that far, but he's got better hair than me.
He's got a better moustache.
He's got better abs than me.
He's got better abs. He's an animal, and I think he's underrated as well. I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to how much chaos he causes. But one to call out in that game for the Steelers as well, who had it was a game changer. It's Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had a game, didn't he? I've got him in fantasy, and he tore the place up. He had multiple passes defended. I think he had 8 or 9 tackles. He had an interception for a touchdown, and he also blocked a kick that would have won the game for the Bengals in overtime. Before it went to overtime. That is a hell of a day for any player.
He's an absolute specimen, that guy.
Yeah, it's very good.
He had a really good game. I think when he blocked that kick as well, I was like, there's no way that's him, and it was him just running off with the ball. It was just, he had a really good game.
Very good game. That's his potential capability. It's why I took him as my first safety in fantasy. Let's see if he can keep that kind of passion going. So great stuff. They were the games of week 1 NFL. Now, real quick, Dave, we're going into the way too early winners of each division. Let's go through it real quick. Just want some snappy way too early winners, north, south, east and west. You do the NFC. I'll take the AFC. Way too early winners. Who wins the NFC North?
I'm going with the Packers.
Packers.
Even after they got the back end blown clean in by the Vikings, ramming their fucking big trumpet right at the Jaxie of the Packers.
Right up the trumpet.
Yeah, and right down Aaron Rodgers' throat. Let's see what your magic crystals can do about that.
Yes.
Nice. So basically, I still think they're going to do the biz. They did it last year. I think they'll do it again. Nice. AFC North, hit me. Who?
Bengals. That's who I'm going with. They didn't have a fantastic game, as we've literally just spoken about. But I think one thing tells the story, and that is that they did have 5 takeaways, or giveaways, should I say, and they still kept it to an overtime field goal. They can still turn that offense on when they want to. If they can cut those mistakes out, they seem to still be every bit as good as they could be. So I'm just pointing it down to a little bit of ring rust, as wrestlers call it, in the NFC North for the Bengals, and I think that they can still win that. After seeing what I saw from the Browns and the Ravens as well, I think they're the best team in the North.
Happy days.
South, NFC South.
The Bucks. And I don't think it's going to be close at all.
Tampa Bay.
The Saints looked beyond average. They were awful, in fact. The Falcons are the Falcons. All they do is blow leads. Who else is even in that division?
Panthers.
I mean...
Yeah. Baker Mayfield and the Panthers that can't beat the Browns. It's not good, is it? So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your pick for the South. My South, even though we've torn them a new one, the AFC South is not a strong place to be at all. It's actually woeful. So I've got the Colts still winning this. I think the Colts, they get Darius Leonard back, who was injured this week. I think Jonathan Taylor basically carries them to win the AFC South, and that is really because the Titans didn't look fantastic. If Derrick Henry gets going, maybe they can do something, but they've lost a lot of firepower in their receivers. Defense doesn't look as stout, or maybe the Giants are just uber amazing. And then the Texans and the Jaguars, two soggy Kit Kats, in your words, Dave. So I think the Colts can still, it's such an easy division, isn't it? I think the Seahawks would win that if they're in it. NFC East.
NFC East, the Giants. That's what I'm going for. I nearly picked the Eagles, but I feel like God would spike me down if I went and picked the Eagles if I walked outside. So I'm going to say the Giants. I think the Cowboys would have been the odds-on favourites, but with Dak gone, they don't seem to have any offense with Dak there. So with Dak gone, I don't think there's any chance the Cowboys, they're going to dig him. They're going to be in a hole. They could easily, when he comes back, they could easily be 0-6.
Nice.
So,
Giants.
Yeah.
Well,
the Eagles got the firepower, but I think they give up too many points. They've not got the defense.
Fingers across for that one, Dave. I'm sure they are. Fingers and toes and ball bag. And that's painful. My East winners are, of course, the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
I don't think I need to say anything else.
No.
They're unbelievable. And then finally we finished with the West. NFC West. Who wins that one?
The Rams. I've got the Rams.
Yeah, can't count them out, can you?
But do you know what? I've got the Seahawks last.
Seahawks last. Yeah, it's not a shock, is it? I think that's the way the season will ultimately pan out. So, and do you know what? We beat Russell Wilson. I'll be happy. It's all good. My West is the Kansas City Chiefs. After what I've seen in week one, this is my way too early winners. Week one, the Chiefs looked unstoppable. I think it's going to be a hard team to beat. The teams that can beat them are in that division, but I'm going with Patty Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the firepower that is the Chiefs.
Pretty elementary, I think, that one.
And those are our way early winners. So, podcast, week one. We done. It's over.
In the bag.
In the bag, locked and loaded. So, as you might have seen from our latest promotions, we are now in association with Hickory Smokehouse in Nottingham. Me and Dave love to head down there, talk football, watch football, eat waffles and wings and burgers and drink loads of beer and cider. It's a great place to go for an evening, especially on a Sunday when the football's on. So go check that out if you're in Nottingham, or if you're not in Nottingham, check where your local one is at hickories.co.uk. Lovely food, lovely football. That's what you want. But for now, thanks for listening. Please share the podcast with football-loving friends. Like, subscribe, follow on all of our channels at In the End Zone UK. Ball is back, baby. Thank you very much.
Ta-ta.
Peace.